Welcome back to Ideas at Work and Beyond. We are delighted to have Police Commission member Carl Letcher here, also a pillar of the community, Chief. Would you say, is that too much to say about that?
Definitely a
Pillar of the community. George Kane is also intimately acquainted with the renovations proposed. Chief Legee, who's always, it's a good thing to be on Chief Legee's good side, and Mac Reed, the editor of the Ridgefield Press. Thank you all for coming in. If you get the aforementioned paper, on the front page, it talks about police plan may spark most interest. And it is the one large capital item coming up for a vote next Tuesday when we vote. You're here to talk about it, give a little history, give a little feedback, and talk about the importance of it. But first, being a, amateur historian of the town, give us a little history of where this
Sure.
gorgeous building came from.
The police department that we're in started out as a private residence. Okay,
It was a private
It was
residence?
built in the late 1800s,
Okay.
and then after that, it was built for the Governor Lounsbury's brother. So
See, I didn't even
one
know
of the
this.
governors
Yeah.
lived at the community center,
Yeah.
and then his brother lived at the current police station.
Okay. Interesting.
And then over the years, it changed hands. It became what was called the Winton's Girls' School.
Okay.
And it stayed as the girls' school for many years. And then a little history relative to the Connecticut State Police.
Yeah.
Their first police barracks was on on West Lane.
Okay.
It was called the Bolin House. And the Connecticut State Police was Troop A because it was the first troop in the state of Connecticut.
Okay.
And it was there for the purpose of prohibition. And that's why they picked Ridgefield, because it's so close to the state line.
Okay.
And they were there to get like the rum runners and people coming across the line. So then
Was there a high concentration of prohibition miscreants,
there.
violators in Ridgefield?
quite honest, I can't speak to police work
You
back then.
can't. Guys, just looking for a little tie-in. Okay.
So I honestly can't give you a good answer on
Okay.
that. But then their second home was the girls' school, which they purchased, and they moved in there in the late 20s, early 30s.
Okay.
And the state police operated out of there as Troop A all the way up until probably 1972, 73.
Okay.
Then they moved to the new current Troop A in Southbury.
Okay.
At which
When did the
point-
Ridgefield Police take
At
over?
which point, the town purchased the land for $60,000 and the buildings, and did approximately $300,000 to $400,000 worth of interior renovations to the building to bring it up to better standards than the state police had. We still have the same cell block that the state police had, the same 4 cells. So the town purchased it. We moved in actually in 1976.
76, okay.
And in 76, it was, the Ridgefield Police Department projected to last 25 years to accommodate 40 to 45 officers.
Okay.
So we have gone well past the 25 years, and we are right at 43 officers. So we're right within the range of the predictions that were put out at that point, and we're kind of busting at the seams now. And
All right, now
now,
you gave people tours on Saturday, and sort of the first selectman said at the town meeting, anytime someone wants to come by, if there isn't a police emergency, people can come and take a look. Is that a standing offer?
well, the first selectman misspoke a little bit.
Did he?
Because we're not doing tours this Saturday, unfortunately.
Not doing tours this Saturday, and generally speaking, you don't want people coming by for ad hoc tours.
Well, we do tours on a regular basis for different, like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, nursery
Okay.
schools, children's groups, that are prearranged, so that
Okay.
we make sure we have somebody available and on hand that's there to do the tour. We don't like to turn people away,
Right.
so we want to have somebody that's there ready to go, so that when you want to give your tour, we're good.
Okay.
So-
By the way, the phone number here is 792-4101, 792-4101. If you have some questions, we'd be happy to address them. George, why are we, as a town, what are the main purposes for doing this renovation? Why now? What is the existing building? What does it need to upgrade? What are the importance of it?
Well, there are a number of things that are going on. I think one of the things that a lot of citizens may not be aware of is over 10 years ago, when Abe Morelli was the first selectman, he had commissioned a central dispatch committee to look at the way dispatching was done in the town, emergency dispatching was done. And I was appointed to that committee along with A.J. DiMattia and one of my colleagues from Westcon, Tony Marker, Richie Brown, and Mike Venus.
Now, just not to interrupt, but would this upgrade address everything that committee had put together?
Absolutely, yeah.
It would.
Yeah.
That would incorporate that.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. In fact, some of the renovations that we're looking at here will address the space needed to accommodate a central dispatch operation.
Okay.
And we looked at a number of different options regarding central dispatch, or how dispatching could be done.
Right.
And the committee concluded that a central dispatching operation would be the best way to do it. See, right now the way dispatching is done is that the police dispatching is done from the police department, and fire and ambulance dispatching is done out of the fire department. So if a citizen were to call 911, for example, the call comes into the police department.
Right.
And if it's an ambulance or fire call, that person is then routed to the fire department. And for a long time, prior to about 3 years ago, if it were an ambulance call and your son or daughter were choking, it was not uncommon, for example, to tell the dispatcher at the police department or the police officer at the police department, my son is choking, and you'd be told, hold on.
Right, okay.
You'd be put on hold, and your call would be routed over to the fire department, and it would ring 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times
It's not good.
before hopefully someone at the fire department would pick up the phone,
Right.
and then hopefully you'd be given directions as to what to do, or be told, well, we have to jump in the ambulance now, so we'll be there as soon as we can. Hang up, and we'll be over there as soon as
So
we can.
this will address that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
about 3 years ago, the state stepped in and said that lag time, or that being told to hold on, could no longer occur.
Okay.
But still, this concept of central dispatching would prevent that kind of thing from ever happening.
Okay.
And dispatchers are now will now be able to handle that from the get-go, and dispatching would happen much more quickly.
One other point, too, American with Disabilities Act says you have to have ramps, you have
Yes.
to have elevators, you have to have wheelchair access. The building as it exists now is in violation of that, is that
We're in
correct?
violation of so many codes that the only reason why the police department is allowed to function right now in its
Yeah.
current state is because it's a police department.
Okay.
The building would be shut down. If there were any other operation other than emergency services, the building would be shut down.
Okay. But once you try to do any type of renovation at all these code violations kick in, and
Correct.
then you have to correct it.
Yes.
All right. Mac
Can I
from the...
expand on that?
Yes.
Please, yeah, go ahead.
We have to correct all the code violations in those areas where we're building or renovating. All of the building is not being renovated, okay? Only a certain aspect of it is being renovated to make space for the 911 center.
Okay.
Other aspects of the building that are not getting renovated are not being brought up to code at this time.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's okay with, then that's...
That's
we're
the
not
way the
touching.
building code reads. That's part
Okay.
of the building code. If you renovate a portion, you've got to bring that portion up to ADA standards.
Really? So it
Yeah.
isn't just for the whole,
No.
it isn't once you start to renovate, you have to bring
No.
everything up to code?
No.
Interesting. I thought it was the other way around.
But for the present building, that's a desirable thing for us to do.
Yeah,
Because there's
especially it's-
lots of violations in there.
Yeah. All right, Carl, you're a builder by trade. Can you tell us
That's right.
a little bit? I mean, I'm on the Board of Finance, so I've had peruse some of these other plans, more expensive plans that have come down. Can you just explain what the evolution to this somewhat scaled back, more economical plan is?
Yeah, I guess about 5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago, we had a plan for a totally new station. Knock the present station down,
Right.
remove it, and that was not received very
No, I
well
remember
in
the
town.
architect's renderings
Right,
on the paper.
right.
It looked pretty boxy, and it
Right,
would have
right.
lost its charm.
But it was a masonry building. You know, this building is a wooden building.
Yeah.
It's not a very secure building in spots. I mean, there's not, masonry is much more secure than the wood. But anyway, we had a study done at that time.
And how much was that going to cost?
That was going to cost $14 million.
Okay.
And that was a totally new station and removing the present building. So we decided that was not going to fly in town. It was an exorbitant amount of money. So we came up with a plan to scale it down, and we had a study done looking for sites in town, different sites in town, what the best situation was for the police department. And we decided that we would renovate the old building and add to it.
Okay, and the price went from 14 million to
4.25.
4.25, and you
Right.
feel like this renovation will put us in good stead for
20 years.
20 years. And the goal, not necessarily a goal, but a future expectations of law enforcement are going to be a 65 officer force, potentially?
60 to 65 officers.
60 to 65, okay.
Based on projected growth and also based on changes in trends in police work from what they were 20 years ago to things that we do now, special details that we have now, special assignments that we have now. If you were to talk to any of us at the police department 20 years ago about school violence, white-collar crime, I mean, before we had the internet and computer systems, nobody was aware of any of those things. I mean, now we have to have specialty people to do things. So down the road, you know, we still have some of those needs to meet, but down the road when we have new demands put on us, when we have people in specialty positions, we have to replenish them in patrol.
Okay, but
So we have to grow the department.
For the taxpayers out there that may be watching this show, they're saying, all right, this is a $4.2 million investment now, but it's going to put us in good stead for 15 to 20 years out.
Correct.
Mac, you have a series of questions.
Well, as I hear people talking about this, I don't hear that many people saying, oh, the police department shouldn't be fixed up, or, you know, it isn't a nice thing to have. I hear concern about spending the money, and particularly spending it now when economic times are tough and the town still hasn't really started seeing the payoff for the bundle school projects going down. Now, you're on the Board of Finance. Maybe you could address this.
No, the Board of, I mean, if all in, with the renovations to the high school, the renovations to all the school, the town has spent in essentially $150 million. Now a lot of that money was doled out 7 years ago now. Time flies, 8 years ago.
2001, yeah.
But the debt service on that is pretty substantial. It's still 11-12% of our total budget, and that's going to continue for some time yet. So if that's what you're talking about, people
Well,
are
I'm saying,
hey,
when I hear, you know, the people that express concern about it, it's often not like, well, you know, why do we want to fix that up, so much as, you know, we just don't want to spend the money, and they feel the town has borrowed a lot of money. Now, the town's credit rating is good, and while we have a higher bonded indebtedness than a lot of other towns do, the state, you know, people don't consider it out of hand for the town's ability to pay, but it's a concern to the taxpayers.
Can I just say, I think it's really important to put this in its proper context.
Sure.
We started discussions about the need to address these issues 8 years ago. And we waited very, very patiently when we began discussions with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, I think even before you were on the Board of Finance. And we presented these plans to the town agencies when I first started back on the commission back in 1999. And we were told, yes, we know you need to do this, but we have other projects that we're working on right now that we feel are more important. And we said, you know, you're probably right. The bundle was going on, then other things need to be done. And we said, okay, as long as we know that you know that this is important, we will take a step back and we will wait. Well, we waited 8 years.
Well, I mean, as it stands right now, the die has been cast. I mean, this has been vetted by the Board of Selectmen and passed. It was vetted by the Board of Finance and passed. So now it's up to the voters, and they're going to vote. I mean, it's kind of democracy in action. Do we have a call come in? Hold on one second. Caller, you're on the air?
Yes, hi, this is Larry from Danbury. Hey, Marty, how you doing?
Hey, Larry, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Good.
Just a couple of questions concerning well, I guess one question is, to what extent does the state provide funding for local police departments? And secondly, to what extent do the local municipalities within Fairfield County work with each other, not just for purposes of law enforcement, but in terms of spreading the costs of financing? Are there any services that can actually be shared between the different municipalities, as opposed to having each municipality have its own, for example, 911 center, that might lead to reduced costs?
All right, now, Larry, as a person that works and makes his living in Ridgefield. Do you feel safe and secure and feel like the police department in Ridgefield is doing a good job?
I do, Marty. Certainly, they've caught me on Route 7 going too quick.
Maybe they're too good. All right, thank you very much for the call. We'll address those questions. Thanks. What about that? Any state funding? Any state money we can get for this? Federal grants?
Part of the project, Mr. Marconi and Charlie Fisher are working on applying to the state for funding, okay, which would, if approved, would reduce some of these costs that we have. However, the approval process is going to take till at least, I believe, August. And what this town has applied for is state funding to offset the cost of the elevator and many of the ADA compliance issues.
Because the elevator in the town hall was completely federal
Correct.
money. Didn't cost taxpayers
And,
a dime.
and that's why we're going down that same road.
We're hoping.
And we're hoping it gets approved. However, we were not going to come before the voters of the town and ask for a project that we couldn't complete if we didn't get the funding.
Yeah, I understand.
So the funding, as you know, when we explained it to the Board of Finance, was this is the total package, okay? And hopefully, if we get state aid or federal funding, we will then be able to offset some of the costs. But we couldn't go into a project and say, hey, you know, we want 3.6 million. It's going to cost 4.2, but we're hoping to get 6 from the state. And then if that didn't come through, then we wouldn't be able to do the project. And that was also, if you recall, part of your board wanted to make sure that the total cost was inclusive of everything, and then hopefully would get diminished.
Okay.
You know,
Is there an elevator in this project, by the way?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
There
Oh,
is.
absolutely.
So we're
It had to
planning
be.
on
Yes.
It's part of the ADA.
Yeah. it
Okay,
has to
but
be,
then
yeah.
that could be paid for retroactively by a federal grant or something.
How much would that reduce the cost?
Yeah.
Depends on what the grant is approved by.
How much is the elevator?
Well, we're looking hopefully for around $600,000.
Okay, that's
But that's the request. Okay, the grant may come through for 200 or 500. I mean, we have no idea what the grant will be approved at.
Yeah.
So we have to go in with a full cost item because we've made it clear right along as a committee that we did not want to go back to the townspeople
Yeah.
Asking for more money.
asking for money after.
It's kind of like that bridge at the golf course. You
Yeah.
know, they build half the bridge, and then they say, hey, we need more money, you know, otherwise you can't get from the 16th to the 17th tee, you know. So what are you going to
Marty,
do?
along
Gotta have
those
a bridge.
lines, though,
Yeah.
the costs are important, and when you say, when is the right time to do this, it just coincidentally happens that now is the right time to do this, because construction costs are down, general contractors don't have that much work,
Okay.
so the bids will probably come in less than they would have a couple of years ago or a couple of years hence.
Okay.
This may cost a lot more 2 or 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years.
That's
It's
good.
like all the
showing.
buildings during the Depression.
That's a very important issue at this point.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
It's like all the buildings during the Depression.
Didn't they build the
Right.
Empire State Building?
And-
Didn't
Right.
Rockefeller build it?
1
during
year.
the Depression?
Right.
They put steel in that building while the steel was still hot from the steel mills in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. True story. They shipped it right there, and they're putting on the steel still held and cool. What other question? You have your ear to the ground. You know what the people.
Well,
are
I'll tell you, the
saying.
thing that
Don't be bashful, because I know you have some questions. I know you have the police
thing
chief
that,
here and some impressive people, but go ahead. Let's get
The
it
thing
out
that
on
surprised me the most in the last couple of weeks on this was the letter from the police union, where they seemed a little lukewarm on the subject. And I spoke to the president of the union, and he sort of suggested that they had learned from an experience in Danbury where they spent a lot of money on a new police station, and then when their contract went to arbitration, you know, the town used that to argue, well, the town's ability to pay is not there, so, you know, we can't give the police a
the thing.
raise.
Giving you guys a raise, but we built this great police station.
Well, it's like being
Sorry.
house poor, and
Okay.
I can understand how that's a concern
Sure.
For the officers, and I wondered what you guys thought of that.
Well, I mean, again, it's an understandable issue. They're afraid, but our goal is for the safety of the community and for the safety of our officers. Certainly, you know, they have a right to be concerned about their families and putting bread on the table, and I understand that. I'm concerned about that too, and I'm a taxpayer of the town of Ridgefield. Most of them are not. Unfortunately, they can't afford to live in the town, and that's unfortunate. But our goal as board members of the police commission is for the safety of our townspeople and for the safety of our police officers. And I want to make sure that they're safe and that they have the tools that they need to protect the members of our community. And that's what my biggest concern is, and that's why we're taking the position that we
And
are.
that central dispatch issue is the primary focus of what's going to benefit the members of the community. You know, the addition at the police department and the interior renovations will have a bearing on improving life at the police station for the officers and the conditions that exist in the men's and ladies' locker rooms, okay, which, if anybody was at the tour on Saturday, saw the conditions that they have to try and operate under. And I can understand their concerns with the Danbury experience.
Right.
However, as Commissioner Kane said, we have to look at the overall benefit to the community, the officers, the department in itself. I mean, we can't remain remiss in knowing that there's violations that exist in the building and expect to just get a free ride proceeding forward because we're a police station and don't address any of the code violations that exist. So it's like a three-pronged effort that we've got to address these different issues at.
Not only that, but the two of us here were on the negotiating committees with the union in the past, and I assume we're going to be on it again.
Right.
And so we're cognizant of that particular situation, and I'm sure that we'll take that into account and be totally fair to the police department, because they are terrific, terrific people.
All right.
We're going to make sure we take care of them.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? I'm almost at, we should like handicap this. I mean, we're not going to. We don't put you on record. But what do you think the sense is? Is the economy in such dire straits that people are going to say, hey, you know, this is too much spending, we're going to vote it down, or think it's going to pass?
I'm very hopeful that it
We
will.
hope it is.
I really am.
We're all for that little pass. I mean, as was stated earlier, we've been waiting a long time to get to this point.
We supported it.
The paper
We
supported
did,
it?
yes.
All right, well, even with these reservations.
And the fact that the Board of
Well,
Selectmen and the Board of Finance did is a good sign for us.
Yeah, and they didn't support the library. Thank you very much for tuning in. Next week, we're going to actually have some of their bosses. First Selectman Rudy Marconi will be joining us next week, and we appreciate Mac Reed showing up. We're going to try and get him to come next week as well. Is that what you're saying? We'll double his salary. And Chief Legee, thank you for coming in. George Kane and Carl Letcher, thank you for coming in. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity,
Thanks a lot.
Marty.
Thank you.